On the morning of August 23, 1973, a man walked into a bank in Stockholm, fired a submachine gun at the ceiling, and announced in English with a fake American accent, "The party has just begun." His name was Jan-Erik Olsen. He was on leave from prison. He took 4 bank employees hostage inside a vault, demanded 3 million kroner and a getaway car, and for the next 6 days held them trapped underground while the police drilled holes through the ceiling and pumped tear gas into the room. 6 days. No natural light, barely any food or water, the constant grinding of drills above their heads, the threat of gas filling the vault. And on the 6th day, when the police finally broke through and ordered the hostages to come out first, they refused. They would not leave until their captors left with them. One of the hostages, a 23-year-old bank clerk named Kristen Enmark, embraced the man who had held her prisoner and kissed him goodbye. Another asked him to write to her. None of them would testify against him in court. They started collecting money for his legal defense. Kristen later lied under oath to protect the second captor, saying she had never seen him hold a weapon. She would eventually title her autobiography, "I Became Stockholm Syndrome." When psychiatrists interviewed the released hostages in the days that followed, they were baffled. One of them asked her doctor with genuine confusion, "Is there something wrong with me? Why don't I hate them?" Something had happened inside that vault that nobody had prepared for. Not the hostages, not the police, not the psychiatrists waiting outside. And when psychologist Frank Ochberg sat down years later to study cases like this one systematically, what he found turned out to be one of the most disturbing discoveries in the history of human behavior. Because the hostages were not broken, they were not brainwashed in any simple sense. What had happened to them was something far more ancient and far harder to escape. To understand it, you have to think about what a threat to your survival actually feels like, not in the abstract, but in the body. For 130 hours, the lives of those 4 people depended entirely on the goodwill of 2 men with guns. The police outside were drilling holes in the ceiling. The police were cutting off their food. The police had locked them into the vault in the first place. And in that situation, there was exactly one person controlling whether Kristen Enmark lived or died. Jan-Erik Olsen. He gave her his jacket when she was cold. He held her when she had nightmares. He handed her a bullet from his gun as a gift. When another hostage could not reach her family by phone, he encouraged her to keep trying. He was the immediate source of every small comfort she experienced during 6 days in which comfort was everything. Ochberg and other researchers studying similar cases identified a pattern they called traumatic bonding. Your brain does not assess a person's moral character in the abstract when you are in immediate physical danger. It tracks one thing only: who controls whether you survive the next few hours. And when someone in a position of total power over you chooses, repeatedly, not to hurt you, and even does small things that feel like kindness, the brain registers this as something close to salvation. A deep, involuntary gratitude begins to form, not because you have chosen it, not because you have decided the person is good, but because some very ancient part of your nervous system has concluded that this person is your only protection from dying. This mechanism has a name. Researchers call it the tend-and-befriend response, a survival strategy studied extensively by psychologist Shelley. When escape is impossible and resistance would be fatal, one of the brain's oldest options is to form an attachment to the source of the threat itself, to make yourself emotionally valuable to the person who could destroy you, because in an environment where you have no power, closeness to the most powerful person in the room is the only protection available. Olsen, by every account, sensed this without knowing the science. He gave small gifts, he asked about their families, he made jokes, he treated them as individuals. The police, by contrast, represented an outside force willing to risk their lives to resolve the situation. To the hostages, the man with the gun began to feel like an ally. The police began to feel like the threat. This is why Kristen called the Swedish Prime Minister from inside the vault and told him, calmly and sincerely, "I fully trust these men. What I am afraid of is that the police will attack and kill us." She was not confused, she was not pretending, She genuinely believed this because her nervous system had rewritten the story of who was protecting her and who was endangering her based on nothing more than proximity, small acts of apparent kindness, and 6 days of total dependency. This was, in a sense, the natural outcome of a survival strategy designed for a world in which conflict was typically settled face to face. Those who are much closer together in nature, the fight or flight response is often replaced by something much more complex, social, and sometimes counterintuitive. What makes this genuinely uncomfortable is not that it happened to 4 people trapped underground in Stockholm 50 years ago. It is that the mechanism itself is not unique to extreme captivity. Researchers have since documented the same core dynamic in long-term abusive relationships, in cults, in certain workplaces where a single person holds total authority over another person's livelihood. The specific trigger changes. The vault becomes a marriage, or a job, or a religious community, but the underlying pattern is the same. A person with total power over your safety or survival, combined with unpredictable cycles of threat and small moments of kindness, can activate a bonding response that overrides rational judgment and replaces it with something that looks from the outside, like loyalty, like love, like freely chosen devotion. The hostages themselves remained confused about their own feelings for years. Elizabeth Oldgren, asked about it afterward, said simply, "I remember thinking he was very kind to allow me to leave the vault." She had been allowed to walk outside on a 30-foot rope, like a dog on a leash, and her memory of that moment was gratitude, not for the rope, for the walk. So what do you do with this information? The most important thing researchers have found is this: the tend-and-befriend response, once activated, is not corrected by information alone. Telling someone in its grip that the person they trust is dangerous rarely works because the brain is not processing that relationship through logic at that point. It is processing it through survival. What actually helps is restoring something the mechanism depends on to stay active: total dependency. The moment a person regains independent access to safety, resources, or alternatives, the grip of the bond begins to weaken. Kristen Enmark, after decades, was eventually able to write critically about what had happened to her in that vault, not because she was told the truth, but because she was finally safe enough to see it. On the 6th day, when the police released tear gas into the vault and forced everyone out, the hostages diffused. They walked out together, arms linked with the men who had held guns to their heads, insisting that their captors be protected. Outside, the world watched, baffled. Inside, something very old and very human had run exactly as it was designed to run, in an environment it was never designed for. A survival mechanism so deep that it could not tell the difference between protection and captivity, between care and control, between the person keeping you alive and the person keeping you prisoner. Sometimes, in the architecture of the brain, those two things are exactly the same person.